Good morning and welcome to Kramer's Corner with daily technical updates. This morning it's brought to you from my home office. Sorry about there might be a little bit of echo here in my basement. Anyway, we'll start this Friday, the 17th of May, with Alibaba that came out with earnings a couple of days ago, where it got hammered down a little bit, but it bounced off support at just around 77.80, and since then it has bounced really strongly and is close to its resistance at 88.80. As you can see here also on the weekly chart, why is that a resistance? However, we are on in a positive sentiment both on weekly and also here on daily, and I wouldn't be surprised if that 88.80 a level is taken out, and then there's potential up to around 103 and a quarter, as you can see here, this resistance level here. So that seems very strong at the moment. It has shaken off this the disappointing numbers. Moving on to the major indices, S&P 500, zooming in here, all-time highs, faded a little bit at the end yesterday, but positive sentiment, there's no divergence, indicating we could see a push up to around 5360, 5400 in the coming week or so, going into mid-end of May. And you always say sell in May and go away, but that doesn't apply for every year. Last few years, I look back the past few years, it was not a good idea to sell and then go away. So let's see about this this year. Nasdaq also higher, faded also a little bit at the end, but there is potential up to around 19,000 also in the coming weeks. Moving on to EUROSTOXX 50. Here in Europe, we are sliding a little bit back here. 5,034 support level. It's not a key level. We could still dip down to around 5,000. There is no divergence at the moment here. There was back here and it's still in play. So we are a little bit stressed, but I still think we could see it picking up in the coming week. DAX also fizzling a little bit. Uptrend is intact, however. Divergence here, you can see this peak here is much higher than this peak value here, but market was lower here than it is currently. However, there's still potential to another push higher, because RSI is still showing positive sentiment. So I would be a little bit cautious, however, but we are in an uptrend, and it's not just over yet, I believe. Amsterdam trading a little bit sideways here around the 910, 915. Still a fairly strong uptrend, and I think we could push a little bit higher, but it is fizzling a little bit. We could see a little bit of a correction down to possibly 900. Not quite sure we'll dip below it, but we could see a little bit dip lower, but we are still in an uptrend around there. CAC is, on the other hand, struggling really. Got rejected a couple of times here at 8,253. Likely to test 8,126 support, and possibly also the cloud area, but the 55 moving average will give some support. So I think we'll see a dip down there and then resuming of the uptrend. Swiss market has been fairly strong lately, and also this morning it is pushing higher. We are now above 12,000. We could push a little bit higher, above 12,000 before I think we will see a correction, but really strong uptrend, no divergence on the RSI, potential up to 12,215, possibly higher in the coming weeks. On the FX side, and euro dollar that got rejected at 108.85 yesterday, peaked just a little bit above, but got rejected. I think we could slide back to around 108 and a quarter, maybe testing the lower rising trend line there, but we are in a positive sentiment, we are in a bullish trend, and there's no divergence on the RSI whatsoever. So I think we will slowly have another go at the 108.85 if it closes above, well, then there's potential up to around 110. We have some strong resistance at 109.80, but the moving averages, as you can see, they are, some of them declining, they are at best flat, so dragging it a little bit, meaning that it will be a struggle to move higher, but we are in an uptrend, at least a short term. Cable 127.10, key resistance, couldn't get all the way out there, but we have the positive RSI, so I think if we will have another go. If it does break above, well, then we are looking at 128. But also look at this, we are still below the cloud, so it's really struggling. And also here, similar to euro dollar, we have flat moving averages, kind of pulling it a little bit back, or holding it back a little bit. Zooming in on dollar yen, that corrected down to the 61.8 retracement and has since bounced, and I think we will see a push higher towards the 157 level. If it takes out that, well, there are potential up to around at least 158.45. At least that is what the RSI is indicating. There's no divergence. We are still having a positive sentiment, so we should see dollar yen higher. If it takes out the lows from yesterday, well, then we could see a sell-off further down to around 152, possibly lower. Euro yen also a fairly strong bounce. It actually didn't correct that much, only down to the 38.2 retracement here. And now we are very close to testing the 169.40 again. That a little bit of resistance we have here, actually quite strong resistance. If it breaks above, well, 170, possibly higher in the coming days and weeks. If it takes out yesterday's lows, well, then we could see a push down to around 166. Aussie yen didn't really correct much. I mean, that was fairly muted compared to the other yen pairs. And we are now trading around these peak areas here at the 786 retracement at just below 104. If we break above that 104.05, I think we could see a push up to 105. There's a little bit divergence building up now here. You can see these peaks here are lower than those over here, but we had higher closing prices. I know we had a spike up, but we had higher closing prices yesterday. So there is a bit divergent, meaning we are a little bit stressed, but there is still further upside potential. Sterling yen currently above the 61.8 retracement here at 197.10. I think we'll see a push up to around 198.65, which is the 786 retracement, and maybe that could be it. But let's talk about that when we get up there. If it takes out yesterday's low, well, then we have a larger sell-off in store. Aussie dollar above the 66.45 resistance. There's now potential up to 67.5. RSI positive, no divergence. I think we will test maybe the 66.45 from the upper side, and then we will take off towards the 67.50, possibly higher. On dollar Canada, finding support a little bit here around the 136. We could still dip down to test the lower falling trend line and the 786 retracement at 135.56. Yeah, I'm not sure we'll get there. We still have positive sentiment on the RSI, so if it drops below 40, well, then maybe it could actually push even lower. I think we will see it's slowly starting resuming uptrend here towards 137 and a little bit higher. EURUSD, quite interestingly, took out resistance at 98.40, and if we look at the weekly chart, we can see what's actually going on a little bit better. So it takes out this resistance here at 98.40, pushing higher towards the 786 retracement of this entire downtrend. We saw it last year at 99.17, but it's not unlikely we could push higher towards par, which is indicated by the dashed line here, but 99.17 should be in the cards really there. Dollar Swiss bounced off its key support at 90, just dipped a little bit below, and I think we will see a resuming of the uptrend. If it moves back above this rising trend line here, well, then there's a push higher towards 92 and 92.5. Finally, on the dollar index, just above the cloud. It actually dipped below and closed below 40 threshold. So we are in a negative sentiment, and we could see a push to touch the test the 103.68 support level here. And it's not unlikely if we get down there that we'll also spike down, but I'm not quite sure, but spike to 103.16 with this 786 retracement. All right, let's move on to commodities and have a look at gold. It touched almost 2400, but it touched the 786 retracement at 2398 within very few cents. And now we have a little bit of a setback. Let's move this a little bit. We had a little bit of a setback, but we are still in an uptrend. Positive sentiment on the RSI. We have a little bit of a divergence over here, but I think we will see gold pushing high. If it takes out yesterday's peak and push above 2400, well, then we're looking at 2430, possibly up to 2490. Silver has been very strong lately, but seems to facing some resistance here just below $30 at the previous peak here, 29.80. I think we will see a little bit of a setback, but there is potential higher towards 31 and a quarter. On the platinum, that has been very strong, also a little bit stalling a little bit, but there is no real strong resistance until around 11.30. We could expect a little bit of a setback, but I think we will push up toward 11.30. Copper also looks a little bit choppish short term. I think we will see a little bit correction. So I added a couple of Fibonacci levels. The last leg up here, possibly down to the 61.8 at 471, but it's not unlikely it could correct all the way down to the 460, 456. But we are in general in a very strong uptrend, but there's really some strong resistance around the peak levels we have seen around 500, 510 here lately. So expect a bit of correction, but be cautious. There's a lot of short squeeze going on. There could be more out of it. Ola Hansen, our commodities expert, can talk more about that. On the Brent oil and WTI, here we have the WTI back above the rising trend line after spiking below a couple of times. I think this support here at 76 will hold, and I think we will see WTI bouncing further a little bit up to around 81.5, 82 possibly. Around these levels here where we have the 55 moving average. I don't think we will go back into a full bullish trend. Same picture on Brent, almost bounced off these supports down here around 81. I think we could see a bounce up to around 84, 75, maybe a little bit higher, 85-ish levels. And finally on the yields, interesting development I've seen after the sell-off the past couple of days. Actually buying in the future, so it reflects in the drop of the yields. We are just above the 786 retracement and support at 429, 430. We were very close to 438. It actually dipped down to. We are in a negative sentiment, but I think we will see a bounce up here the next couple of days above 430, 440, and we're still above the cloud. So larger correction, and let's see what happens. And it will just very quickly, we are running out of time here, very quickly looking at the future. Well, it can still push up to the 110.4, where we also have the 100 moving average coming down. Excuse me, putting a lid on it, and I think then that will be it. All right, that's all for today. Have a nice day and a nice weekend, and happy trading.